You've entered BOOKSTORM with Kristen Civiletto and me, Chris Storm. This is a podcast devoted to best-selling books that matter, books that make a difference. We're diving down deep with beloved authors about their stories. We're exposing hot-button topics and heartfelt themes, the issues that affect each of us in our own lives, as siblings, parents, partners, friends, as human beings. We're braving new ideas, fresh thoughts, hard lessons, and important truths. Those kinds of things that stay with us long after we turn the last page and close the book. Well, welcome back to BOOKSTORM Podcast. Loyal listeners, I think we're in 92 countries, all 50 states, and almost 2,000 cities. You're going to be very excited about who we have with us today. One of our all-time favorites. We have the Patricia Cornwell. She's back with another novel in the Scarpetta series. Let me show you the cover for our YouTube watchers. And if you're not a YouTube watcher, you're going to want to log on to this because we've got a great view of Patricia's office with a pretty cool skeleton in the corner from her morgue days. And Patricia, welcome back to BOOKSTORM. So happy to have you back.
Thank you. It's great to be back.
You know, before we get started, I like to tell our listeners just a little bit about you. They know everything. You're a household name. You're a favorite amongst all readers. But do our listeners know that Patricia's books have sold over 120 million copies, 36 languages, 120 countries? Absolutely amazing. She sold her very first novel, Postmortem, while working as a computer analyst at the Office of the Chief Medical Examiner in Richmond. Now, what is super cool about this Postmortem book? It was the first bona fide forensic thriller. It paved the way for an explosion, if you remember back then, about 25 years ago, in the entertainment industry for film, television, and literature. It won a ton of awards. In fact, I believe this was the first book to win so many awards in one award season. The Edgar, the Creasy, the Anthony, the McCavity, and on and on. Thank you for that book. We have grown to absolutely love Kay Scarpetta, her savvy tech niece, Lucy, the fellow investigator, Pete Marino. They've become good friends of ours. We care about what happens to them. So we were thrilled that this next book came out. And Patricia now lives in Boston, although she was born in Miami and grew up in North Carolina. And I just want to add, I'm very happy to see on your bio that you are tirelessly researching cutting-edge forensic technologies. We could see that in this book. Thanks for doing that. And thank you for this fun series. So happy to have you.
I'm so happy to be here.
Well, Patricia, we like to give the listeners just a sneak peek of what's going on in your story. We're here to talk about Identity Unknown. Is this the 28th book in the Dr. Kay Scarpetta series?
I believe that's right. I'm even losing count. Not kidding. I have to go back to the front page and start going 1, 2, 3, 4.
Well, we can't get enough because she's so sharp and so just a cool character. And I want to just tell our listeners a little bit without giving away any surprises because it's very hard in this book. But in this story, she is summoned to a theme park to examine a body. She does the forensic examination. She brings a member of her team, but she is very devastated when she learned that it is somebody she actually knows and once loved. The victim is a man. His name is Sal Giordano, and he is somebody that from her past, she's had quite a beautiful relationship with him and still does to this day. Now, the murder scene when she gets there is very shocking. There is a crop circle of petals around the body. His skin is very unusually red. And Lucy, that we just mentioned a minute ago, she believes that maybe he was dropped from an unidentified flying craft because one had been spotted in the area earlier and around the time when he probably would have died. Now, she knows that through the autopsy process, she's going to learn a lot. And in this particular situation, he may have even left a few clues for everybody, especially her. Now, these investigators. And I love Marino because he's always thinking there's something otherworldly going on. But Dr. Scarpetta is torn between, do we have something maybe unusual, a phenomenon at issue here? Or is this just evil people at work doing their thing? And so I love how she is navigating that. She's always navigating relationships, but we see so many different worlds collide in this story. Did you want to add anything to that backdrop?
Well, no, I think you've done a wonderful job of setting the stage, and I have to say, even though it's always hard writing a book, I mean, it's really hard work, but this one in particular was fun. I mean, I love the whole UFO idea, and when I start a new Scarpetta, that's the first thing I ask myself is what fills me full of wonder. And what do I read every time I see it on the internet? The latest UFO story, start with that. Or the latest book that's come out that's talking about non-human intelligence and that we're not alone. So I thought, well, what if we had a story where it looks like that maybe the victim had some kind of encounter along these lines, and what's Scarpetta going to do with that? And so that's how that all got started.
It's fascinating. And there's a couple other things that blew my mind. I'm going to give our readers a couple little teasers. Case Scarpetta knows that a dead body speaks secrets. In all of these Scarpetta series, the morgue scenes in the autopsy fascinates the reader. I had to ask you, you showed us a little something more in this story in particular. You showed us that investigative techniques of yesterday are constantly changing. We saw the new AI called Janet, and she was giving information and ideas that our characters may never have considered on their own. You also mentioned something else that really blew my mind, that there are programs out in the world that maintain the world's accurate timing. I have said this now to at least 20 people. We have the advanced reader's copy, and I can't stop thinking about the repercussions of the destruction of that time. I had to ask you, in your experience as a writer, all of your research, your personal experience in the morgue, how is this investigation changing? Where is it headed? Where is Case Scarpetta headed? Is it good? Is AI good? Is it bad? Are these computer programs good or bad? Or maybe it's the people using them that we have to worry about.
Well, people are always what we have to worry about. And the biggest danger with artificial intelligence is the data that go in. And if you have people that are writing programs that are causing AI to look for things that are very destructive, such as profiling human beings. And imagine then if you've got an army of police that are robots, because that's going to happen. And then these go out, and because of the programming, then because you're walking by dressed a certain way, that you're going to get shot or something terrible. So yeah, we can come up with all those scenarios, but the way I look at it is, as a creative, obviously I need to deal with these things because they're there. It'd be a lot easier to write books back in the 90s like I used to, where the DNA was the big thing, and that alone is a challenge, because if DNA does its job, then you've got like a book that's 1 page long. Well, now because of cell phones and the cyber world, you still could have a book that's only a page long, because your phone, you carry that to a crime scene, even if you've got it turned off, they're going to find you. Boom, they're going to hit on that signal and they know you were there. We just had a case like that in America with the college kids the college kids that were killed in Idaho. And so you and cameras everywhere and satellites. You realize how little there is, that we don't know if we have privacy anymore. So not only how do you use that as an artist, but how do we navigate in a world like that to begin with? And my feeling about AI is we may as well try to make it our friend. You're not going to get rid of it. It's already here. I was hearing about artificial intelligence when I wrote The Body Farm in 1994. So it's here. When we Google, it's here. What does Scarpetta do with this? What does this mean about criminal investigation? Well, it's not even the same planet that I'm writing about, not the one I started with in postmortem. It's just not the same world.
Thank you for bringing all this realistic investigation to light because we're learning so much about it. But then by you throwing in the UFO, the possibility of something from outer space, the outsiders, the others, you also showed us that even in an investigation, some things cannot be explained. Some things have to be hypothesized, maybe this and maybe that, and open the mind to possibilities.
Yes. I mean, that to me is what's fun about life. Instead of going through life having already decided what's real and not real and never taking the lid off that pot up here, why don't you come with it at the attitude of, well, maybe it is. Maybe it is real, whether it's Bigfoot or that strange light that you saw in the sky that you didn't move like an airplane. I mean, maybe it's something different. But I am very factually oriented. So if I thought that the idea of non-human intelligence, and by the way, human intelligence is so up for debate. Where is it? I'm looking for it every night. I watch the news and I don't see it anywhere. But something greater than us, and maybe even something that, I mean, do you know that when NASA did mining of an asteroid and brought back pieces of it, this is in recent years, and they found all the building blocks for DNA on that asteroid that came from light years away. So we know that we are made of the same stuff as the stars. And what makes us think we're all there is? There may be these vast societies of extremely sophisticated life forms that they might even be here and we don't even know about it. But I love that thought and I want to explore it instead of dismissing it and being frightened by it. I'm more afraid of people. I know what people can do. I have yet to meet an extraterrestrial that killed anybody. Now, if I find out there really are, then I might get scared.
Mm-hmm. I'm just to add this one quote that I had written down. Sal said about telescopes, we're witnessing what's happening billions of years ago. We're watching our own creation. I love that line.
Thank you, but it's true. And we especially are seeing that with the Webb telescope, that's out there now that is seeing, I'm so sorry, excuse me a minute. But the Webb telescope, I got to hear a lecture by the person who designed that telescope. And basically he said, this is not a telescope, it's a time machine. Because if you see, it takes so many years for waves of light to hit us. That's why we have the term light years. Therefore, what you're seeing into is the past, because what we're seeing is what was emitted X number of years ago that's now just reached us. It's like a really slow movie. The projector's grinding away, and then 1,000 years later, we see the image on the screen. Well, what we're seeing then is what is not now. That was then. So hypothetically, and really factually, the farther back we can see, eventually we could see the Big Bang. I mean, we're seeing a rerun of our whole universe like a movie because we're not watching it in real time, because that's how long it takes for those images to get to us. So the farther back we can go, the more these telescopes are seeing, the more we're seeing our own past. And that's really mind-boggling to me.
It's cool.
Yeah, all of these topics that you address, first of all, it's one of the reasons why this book is so entertaining and you cannot put it down, because you're delving into things that fascinate people. And I want to go back to something you had just said. You know, we all have our perception of the others, you know, maybe another race or aliens or what have you. And a lot of people have a scary image because, you know, they think we're going to be conquered and it means war. And Dr. K. Scarpetta, she agrees with you, surprisingly. She says, it's people we should fear. They're who bring death to our door. Do you think she's right? Do you think the evil we know is the one that we should be most concerned with right now?
Absolutely. Especially if you know it for God's sake, you know, if it's right in front of you, yes, then that's what you should be afraid of and afraid of in the sense that you're going to make sure you're safe. This is not permissible. Serial killers are not allowed in our society. We cannot have people that do these things or rapists or all these, the evil that gets manifested, cruelty to animals, whatever it may be. And we got a lot of cleaning up to do on this planet. I mean, the way we even treat animals is disgraceful. I mean, I hate the food chain. I swear I wouldn't eat anything if I didn't have to. And so we should be focused on the bad things, the bad engineering, as I call it, because that's really what it is. It's really horrible engineering. When you have a child born and that child is abused and has terrible things happen, then why are you surprised if he grows up to be Jack the Ripper? You know, as awful as that person is or was, what's also awful is what made him, and what can we do to correct those things in front of us that we can now, because I can't, if there's a UFO up there, I can't do anything about that. And if we have a higher society of beings that have something to do with us and maybe even are instrumental in our creation, because we're going to be creating life on other planets, we're sending DNA places, and like I said, it's all over the universe. So if there is something like that, I'm frankly not afraid of that. That's like scientists in a laboratory. Maybe I want to make sure I understand what the heck they're getting ready to do to me, but they're not likely to just be killing me for fun or being cruel or making, doing terrible things like we do. So, and that's Scarpetta, her job security is the way we behave. And she wishes that were not true. When she starts out in this story, she's not worried about aliens, so to speak, coming after her. She's not worried about a spaceship hovering overhead and zapping her with a ray gun. She's worried about who the hell is really behind this. And most of all, like the little girl that she's autopsying in the beginning, who killed her. Because they're saying she killed herself with her daddy's gun, but Scarpetta has reasons to say, I don't think so. I don't think that's what happened here. And weirdly, it's all connected to everything. It's all connected. But then Da Vinci said everything's connected.
I love that you raised the idea in the reader's mind of maybe we project that onto the others, because as a human race, we do seek to conquer and own and gather up for ourselves. I mean, we do good things too, but there's that bent towards domination. And so it's really interesting to think about how we project that onto other races or aliens or people we don't know, because maybe that's where we are.
Well, we tend to fear. We tend to fear, and also we tend to suspect things that sometimes we're guilty of ourselves. And because human nature is human nature. And what we want to do is lift above that primitive impulse, which is to dominate, to control, and if need be, even to eradicate. These are all very primitive instincts, and then some of them are so aberrant, I don't know where they come from, because most animals don't do what humans do. And so, that Scarpetta, very realistically, that's what her bottom line is. That's what she's always going to suspect she's confronted with. But if it's possible that this person was dumped out of a non-human craft, then she works that case as if that might be what happened, because she has to prepare for it, which is why she shows up with a Geiger counter and the most important, chemical suit, everything she can muster to protect herself. And then she has to double pouch the body and actually treat it as a biohazard, which is really hard for her, because this is somebody she used to love. And so all of that adds layers of poignancy to it.
Agree. It sure does. And I'm going to quote Dorothy. Dorothy said this, but we know that Patricia Cornwell wrote it. I just want something to be out there, something besides us. These shows that Pete and I are addicted to, well, they offer hope. There's more to life than the failed mess that we see every darn time we turn on the news. I want goodness to win. I want something bigger and better than us to make sure we don't kill the entire planet. When I read that, I'm like, yes, exactly. Maybe this is a good thing. The others, the UFOs, we want something bigger. Thanks for adding that.
Well, Dorothy said it, but I'll tell her that you liked it.
Okay.
So
I know you really said it.
Yeah, Dorothy is becoming deeper and more profound since I now know that Jamie Lee Curtis is playing her.
Yes, isn't that amazing? I thought the same thing with Dorothy in this book. I thought, Dorothy, you're getting pretty cool there. Now, I have to say something for our readers. We love Kay Scarpetta. We love these mysteries, her knowledge, her keen, savvy insights. But you have done something much more that hooks us into these stories. You talk about relationships. You have woven heartfelt, heartbroken, heart healing relationships into the very foundation of these characters. I Love Lucy. Hey, that was a show, wasn't it? I Love Lucy.
It's got a ring to it.
She lost her wife, Janet, and her son. Then Lucy falls in love with a narcissistic sociopath, Carrie, who broke Lucy's heart. Tron sums it up best when he says this, I'm going to quote, "What is between them, Lucy and Carrie? It's pathological. No matter what Lucy is doing, part of her mind is always on Carrie. It's like she's holding her there in a trance. I'm beyond believing that Lucy can be objective about anything." Wow. As the author of these characters, okay, is love a mystery of its own? Why is this deep character so important to your stories and to us in the real world? And I have to say, thank you for creating them because we can relate to them.
Well, Carrie Grethen came along, and my very first book that had her in it was The Body Farm, around 1994. So 30 years ago, she's been around. And that was they met at the FBI Academy. Lucy was a college student and she was an intern there. Her Aunt Kay does this great thing and gets, Lucy an internship at the FBI Academy in Quantico. And then Kay has to worry, even now, was that the worst thing she ever did? Because Lucy going there, guess who ends up her supervisor? Carrie Grethen. And they developed a pathological relationship, a totally dysfunctional, intense pathological entanglement is what I would call it, that they can't seem to disengage from. And even though Lucy's not around her and hasn't been for a long time, this is a very evil person, Carrie Grethen, for those who don't know. I mean, she's basically like a serial killer, but she's brilliant and she's charismatic and very striking looking, and she's fearless. I mean, she can do anything, really just about anything. She's like a Lucy who's evil. Let's just call it what it is. And in metaphor, this is her evil twin. Well, now you go through life. What Lucy has to worry about is when this person reappears, which is in the last book. And now, let's just say she makes her presence known again in this one. Lucy's always looking over her shoulder for her anyway, because she knows her. And she knows that as long as she has the freedom to poke a stick at them or to cause trouble, she will. And it's now to the point that even Benton, who's the criminal profiler, when Scarpetta's worried that this person's going to kill them all and maybe do it, in the dark of the night in one fell swoop, Benton says, but we're her only family. As sick as that is, and as much as we hate her, she's attached to us. And she would not have that host if we were gone. And so you never know, would she kill Lucy or would she not? I mean, if they were actually in a standoff, would Lucy kill her? I don't know the answer to that. I don't. But as we sit here discussing it, I'm not sure either one of them could do it. It's kind of like the Star Wars thing. They might clash their lightsabers, but they don't want, where would they be if one is gone? It'd be a free radical floating around in the universe.
It's a cool relationship because we can all relate to it, maybe on a much lesser scale. Toxic relationships are common. This takes it to another degree, but it is just amazing. It's fascinating.
Opposition is what creates power. Even as one of the laws of physics, for every force there's an equal opposing one. And this, like this, that's why we love thrillers and mysteries and sword fighting and wrestling. And we like energy is created when things confront each other. And unfortunately, that also includes when they're the ugly confrontations. It creates energy. And so we are drawn to that.
Patricia, I want to ask you about the brilliant Sal Dante Giordano. I loved his character. He was an Italian astrophysicist and inventor, and also, of course, as we've talked about, Dr. Scarpetta's lifelong friend. And he really evokes those Renaissance polymaths of the past. I kept thinking about Galileo and Da Vinci, and I wanted to ask you about this. Like many of those geniuses who had their mind and their hearts set on what was above, the stars, and trying to figure out how the universe worked, was he so much involved there that it would be difficult for him to be a present husband or partner or father? What do you think?
I think he felt that way. I think he was a shade away from being a Nikola Tesla. And Tesla was this incredibly isolative person who believed that he could not do what he needed to do if any of his energy was channeled into human relationships. And so, he lived alone, he died alone. And he basically lived a life in a vacuum, but he felt that's what he needed to do. It's sort of like someone that becomes a monk, I guess. And I think Giordano Bruno, that's a Freudian slip because that's an Italian person, astronomer, who was martyred. He was burned at the stake for being a heretic. But and that's why I gave this character that name, is after that astronomer, Giordano. But so Sal Giordano is very much this, he is a Renaissance man, and somebody who has a calling that he doesn't even understand, but he feels that pulling at him. And he knew his life and Scarpetta's life would not be compatible. I mean, they met in Rome, and they had this incredible fling for the month that she was teaching over there one summer, when she was getting away from miserable stuff going on when she was the chief in Richmond long ago. And so they had this wonderful, passionate relationship, but it wasn't practical that they could continue it. And some of that was her too. She couldn't have lived his life and moving or going wherever he needed to go. But yet they maintained a very important friendship. They were on the Doomsday Commission together, and they were intellectual compatriots. And when they would go to their big meetings at the White House or the Pentagon or wherever, Sal would come pick her up in his old pickup truck. And so there she is, the chief, Scarpetta, in this old pickup truck with this astrophysicist rattling down the highway, going to the White House, going to the Pentagon for their big meetings. And she will horribly miss him.
Yeah.
Because I don't know where that came from. This all just was sort of magical to me too. It's almost like, I didn't know that about you. How come you hadn't told me about that one before? Yeah. And boy, Benton ain't gonna like this.
I loved it. And I love too that he represented kind of the best of humanity. We talked about some of the depths and the worst of people, but he represented something in this book that I think is pretty cool. And I'll leave it to the reader, to mind that a little bit. I know you have to go. I just want to, first of all, thank you for this highly entertaining. This is a wonderful, wonderful book. I think your readers are just going to gobble it up. And Chris and I have been talking about it ever since we read it. Can you just give us a quick glimpse of maybe what's on your radar without giving away any secrets?
Well, I asked myself, so what else fills me full of wonder? And I said, I like ghosts. I want to look into ghosts. And so I am. And I want to look into the science of how, what's that all about? So I am in the depths of that, again, dealing with extremely unusual technologies that could create something that might really blow your mind. So I'm working on that right now.
Awesome. Well, we cannot wait to see what you're doing next. Readers, patriciacornwell.com, X, Facebook, Instagram. Thank you again for coming back on the show. And we know we'll see you again in the future.
Anytime. I loved it.
Thank you so much.
Take care.
Good to see you.
Good to see you.
It's always so great to have Patricia Cornwell on here. And, like us, she's a deep thinker. There is a lot of thought that goes into these characters, real life scenarios, new technologies. I loved all of it. There was one other quote I wanted to say. Kay says, part of life is accepting things that won't change no matter how disappointing. Marino says he feels like all he's done is settle. Whoa. We don't want to believe this is true, but I guess this is sometimes a true part of life. And that's another thing that I like about this book. There's some mystery. There's some UFOs. There's some not real, but there's some real. Did you
Yeah.
catch that quote?
Yeah. Yes. And I think that when you confront things bigger than yourself and even confront death, it causes you to really go back and think about what's important. And so I see a reckoning coming for a couple of these characters, including Marino. I can't wait to kind of see where he goes with things. But I loved that it reminds us that the universe and love and relationships, they're bigger than just our little problems every day. And that was a pretty cool part of the book. She really does operate on many levels. And so as you're reading, it's just causing you to think about things maybe in a different light.
I agree. This universal level of not just what is here, but things that exist beyond our current awareness. We can get so wrapped up in the little things of life. Sometimes we forget to look at the big picture. I loved
Yeah.
every ounce of it. It was fantastic.
Yeah, it really was. Well, listeners, we have some other fantastic authors coming up very quickly. I'm going to give you a little rundown. Shelley Noble, The Colony Club. Jessica Strasser, Catch You Later. Lori Frankel, Family. Robert Dugoni, Beyond Reasonable Doubt. Linda Cohen Leutman, The Love Elixir of Augusta Stern. Jessica Hagedorn, Dog Eaters. Helena Eklund, Clever Little Thing. Victor Methos, The Silent Watcher. Graham Brown for Clive Cussler, Desolation Code. Amal El Motar, The River Has Roots. Alex Hay, The Queen of Fives. And listeners, please stay on the radar with us. We love that you share our links to our social media. You can find us on YouTube. Just search for Bookstorm and podcast. We'll come up with all of these beautiful videos with these amazing authors. You will enjoy them. You can also find us on Facebook, on Instagram, on X, on TikTok, and at our website, bookstormpodcast.com. Until next time, listeners, one of the best ways to brave the storm is to dive down deep into life-changing fiction.